Hi, this is Gabrielle Lichterman, founder of Hormonology and creator of the Hormone Horoscope apps. You can learn more about me and my mission to educate women and girls with monthly cycles about how their hormones impact their moods, health, and behavior all cycle long at my website, myhormonology.com. So thank you for joining me for another Facebook Live chat on Sunday afternoon. Well, it's afternoon for me. It's noon Eastern time. I like to do these Sunday at noon chats just as an informal way to share some favorite hormonology tips and tricks with you. And it also gives you an opportunity to ask me questions if you have any questions. I'm open to any questions you have. Before we get started, I just want to explain the plants behind me. That is not, despite appearances, not a marijuana farm. Those are milkweed plants, which also doesn't sound very good, but those plants feed monarch caterpillars that I have outside. When I moved to Florida from New York City, as you can imagine, New York City, there wasn't a lot of wildlife. I mean, aside from the rats. When we moved down here to Florida about 10 years ago from Manhattan, my next door neighbor got me into butterflies, which I hadn't seen in a while, and I got into them hard. They're just so beautiful and elegant, and I learned that the monarch butterfly is going extinct, so I plant a whole bunch of milkweed plants out in the garden. And when the monarch butterflies lay their eggs and then the eggs turn into caterpillars, I then take the caterpillars to my monarch butterfly habitat where I fill it with fresh, organic, non-pesticide laden plants for them to eat, and then they turn into chrysalis, and when they're ready to become butterflies, we let them out. I think last week we let out, I think it was like 3 dozen monarch butterflies. And it's a really fun thing to see all the butterflies flying around. So that's why there's like all these plants. They're actually all over my office. And so there you go. Not pot, just milkweed. So today I want to talk about this really cool thing about your cycle. There's many, many cool things. But this particular one can help you make big decisions that have long-lasting ramifications. And these kinds of big decisions, I mean, are like if you should look for a new job, if you should move in with someone you're dating, if you should get married, if you should make a big investment, something that requires like a lot of seeing the pros and cons, weighing the pros and cons, because there's so many different ways to look at it. And the outcome, you know, like I said, has these long-term effects. You don't know if it's going to end up good or bad. Well, there is a sweet spot in your monthly cycle where making these big decisions is easier. It's not just only easier, you tend to be able to weigh those pros and cons in a better way so that you can make that choice. So I'll go through this with you. So when you have a big decision to make, as I said, you know, whether it's, you know, changing careers or taking your relationship to the next level, it's good to think about that decision throughout each week of your monthly cycle. And the reason for that is during the first half of your monthly cycle, estrogen is climbing. And as it climbs higher and higher, it makes you more optimistic. It helps you see the benefits. In fact, the higher it climbs, you might get too optimistic. You might, you know, ignore red flags, ignore potential problems because you really want it to work out well. This rising estrogen is just triggering a flood of feel-good brain chemicals that boost optimism and mood and excitement, so you can get very excited very easily and skip out on those problems that could happen if you pick a choice. So during the first half of your cycle, you're far more optimistic because of rising estrogen. Now, so that first half of your cycle is week 1 and week 2. And week 3 is the 8 days following ovulation. And during that time, estrogen drops during the first half, then it rises, then progesterone rises throughout your week 3. And during that time, you adopt a more realistic point of view. And I'll get to that later because that's really where you want to like focus your sweet spot. So let's go to week 4, your premenstrual week. During that time, estrogen is dropping like a rock. And during this, because of that, estrogen is dragging down levels of brain chemicals that boost your mood and optimism and excitement, everything that was rising in your week 1 and week 2. Well, in week 4, that premenstrual week, it's all on the downswing. So as a result, you have a more pessimistic point of view. You have a more cynical viewpoint. You tend to expect a worse outcome. As a result, you might skip an opportunity because you're just convinced it's not going to turn out well, because you're a little bit more negative about it. Again, it's because estrogen is dropping and it's dragging down levels of brain chemicals that boost your mood. When that happens, it just shifts your outlook to a little bit more negative. You're a little bit more pessimistic. So during the first half, you're optimistic. During premenstrual week, you're more pessimistic. So let's go back to week 3. Week 3, as a reminder, is the 8 days following ovulation. Now, week 3 is kind of complicated in a way hormonally, because as I said, during the first half of your week 3, really the first 3 days, day 15, 16, and 17 in a 28-day cycle, but the first 3 days following ovulation, estrogen is dropping steeply, as a matter of fact, and progesterone is rising. But during the final 5 days, during the second half of your week 3, so let's say that's 4 days starting after ovulation, and so counting those 5 days. So it's the second half of your week 3, which is following ovulation. During this time, this is your sweet spot. This is when estrogen is rising, which is boosting your mood and outlook, giving you a sunnier outlook. But it's also when progesterone is rising. Now, progesterone and estrogen only rise together once in your cycle, and it's those 5 days of your cycle, the second half of your week 3. And progesterone has a way of tempering that rising estrogen optimism. It keeps it from getting too much because progesterone is a sedating hormone, and it's a hormone that pushes you to be cautious. Progesterone rises throughout your week 3 because your body thinks it could be pregnant. It thinks that you may have fertilized your egg during ovulation. So during your week 3, progesterone rises, and as it does, it makes you more cautious. One of the many things it does is it makes you more cautious because in case you got pregnant, it wants you to be safer. It wants you to make safer, more cautious decisions. So here you have this hormone that's rising that makes you more cautious, but you also have a hormone rising that makes you more optimistic. So progesterone tends to temper that optimism, and together, when combined, this rising estrogen and rising progesterone gives you a reality check phase of your cycle. This is when things look more realistic, when you can balance those pros and cons. You can weigh them. You can say, okay, there's more pros than cons, or there's more, cons than pros, or maybe, this one con outweighs all of these. Whatever it is, you can see the issue from many different angles in a more realistic and practical way. So I've tried this myself many times, but so have Hormonology fans. I had one Hormonology fan write to me. She's a longtime follower of Hormonology, and she wanted to find out if it was a good time to move in with the person she was seeing. So she went through her whole cycle, which is smart, because if you think about the issue throughout your whole cycle, you'll know what it feels like when it's like super optimistic. What are all the positive, what are the things you can really like look forward to? And then premenstrually, okay, what are the challenges that I'm super afraid of? But she also homed in on that reality check phase of her cycle, the second half of her week 3, that's following ovulation. She made her decision then. And she weighed the pros and cons, of course, because moving in with anybody there's a lot at stake. What if it doesn't work out? What if it makes the relationship worse? What if it makes the relationship better? So she decided to do it. She and her partner moved in together, and it worked out so well that they actually got married. So that is a wonderful success story. That's a wonderful way to use that reality check phase of your cycle. So I'm going to keep this video short today because I have a very, very long to-do list, but I wanted to share this with you because if you have a big decision to make, whether it's about your family, career, investments, your business, whatever it is, and it has a long-term impact, meaning you really have to make the right decision because this one's going to be hard to undo, or it's going to be, something that takes you down another path. I absolutely recommend going throughout your entire cycle and feeling how it is throughout your entire cycle, how exciting it is or how scary it is, but then home in on that week 3, the second half of your week 3, that reality check phase of your cycle, and weigh the pros and cons then. I really feel like you're going to find it so much easier to have a realistic, balanced view of the issue that makes it easier to make the decision and makes you more confident about the decision that you end up making. So if you have any questions, you can ask me in the comments section below, or you can email me at gabrielle@myhormonology.com. I'm always happy to answer questions. And please visit my website, myhormonology.com. I have a lot of free tools that will help you learn all about your cycle. Free ebooks, infographics, blog posts. The blog posts are great because I go through, I'm a women's health reporter, so I go through a lot of great studies that will help you with PMS, premenstrual syndrome, menstrual cramps, migraines, aches and pains, a whole bunch of things. I specialize in reporting on natural remedies. So please go to the blog, write in, in the search box, write in what you're looking for, depression, anxiety, anything. And I've written about, I've written over 700 articles about all types of cycle-related issues with links to the studies so you can see them and take them to your doctor or other healthcare professional to talk about these studies if you feel they relate to you or if you feel there's a remedy that you'd like to try. So if you have any questions, you can always ask me too, Gabrielle@myhormonology.com. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to chatting with you again next Sunday at noon Eastern Time. Take care.